Today I'm going to talk about how I do my content repetition step by step. I already made a video about what content repetition is and why it is, in my opinion, better for beginners than immersion. However, in summary, content repetition is when you watch content in your native language and then watching it repetitively in your target language. The goal here is to understand the 80% of the content in your target language. After that, you can apply the same process to the next piece of content and the next. You continue this until you reach a level where you feel comfortable enough to start immersing yourself. For me, this foundation of learning structures in a language is more important for a beginner than actually building vocabulary by learning I+1 phrases. For example, if you like sports, you know that to be a good in that sport you need to understand their structure first. For example, if you like sports, you know that to be a good in a sport you need to understand the structure first. In basketball, you need to understand the goal is to have more points than the other team. And you score points by shooting the ball through the opponent's hoop. With that in mind, you can start practicing your first 3 truths. For Japanese or any other language, you need to know the main structures before you start training. Otherwise, you're going to learn something useless, forget it, you may give up because you're not seeing the results. So the first thing you need to do to start content repetition is find the content. You can go to YouTube and find content in Japanese that has subtitles in both your native language and your target language. Actually, you don't need to do that because I already done the research and put some videos in the description that you can try, both in Japanese and English. However, you can also use an anime that you like or have you already watched it. For me, I'm doing content repetition with Romantic Killer and I had pretty good results. My recommendation for choose content are that it should be between 5 to 20 minutes long. Anything more or less than that can be hard to engage with or repeat. Also, choose something that has daily life vocabulary, like a slice of life anime or a vlog, for example. Choosing a fantasy anime or video will introduce more irrelevant words for a beginner, so focus on the basics for now. After choosing your content, watch it entirely in English subtitles to see if you like it. Remember that you're going to repeat the same content for the next few weeks, so it has to be at least engaging for you. However, don't try to seek out the perfect content. If you like it, that's enough. The second step is to watch the first minute of the video or episode again, this time in your native language. The goal here is to memorize the meaning of every phrase, not word by word, just the overall meaning of it. Repeat it between 3 to 5 times to really cement in your memory. Think you need more repetition, no problem, repeat as much as you like. The third step is to repeat just the first minute with your target language subtitles. The goal in this third step is to mentally translate into your native language. Some people in the language learning community say that translating into your head is a problem, and I agree if you're an intermediate to advanced level. But for a beginner perspective, if you are translating correctly, that means you are understanding and making progress. So when you're watching your target language, try to recall the meaning in your native language. It doesn't have to be word by word, just the overall meaning. After doing some repetition for just a few days, I now understand a good portion of the content in my target language. Based on my experience, content repetition will likely take 10 to 15 minutes a day for you. However, the magic happens when you do every day. Just like Anki, you need to do a little bit every day to see the results. On the first day, you repeat just the first minute of the content. On the second day, you repeat the second minute to the third minute. And the third day, you repeat the third minute to the fourth minute of your content until you finish. Once you have finished every minute of the content, watch it again in your target language subtitles and see if you understand 80% of the content or more. For example, if you choose a 10-minute piece of content, if you understand about 8 minutes of it, you're good to move to the next one content. To make sure I understand everything, I also make Anki flashcards with content I'm doing content repetition with. However, I'm cover that in the next video. The reason why I think content repetition works for me is that the process of understanding a language is basically about recalling the meaning of something. So, if I show you something, like a ball, you recognize it. However, you might not know what it's called in Japanese. It's important to know that understand the meaning is an unconscious process. But that's why in a language you are fluent in, you understand not just the words, but also cultural aspects, common manners, etc. Everything you learn is based on multiple signals in multiple contexts. However, when you are a beginner in a language, you don't know the word or a meaning of something because you haven't experienced it in a multiple contexts and you don't recognize the signals yet. On the other hand, when you repeat the same structures, you start to recall the meaning in your native language, and after a few days, you will recall the meaning without needing to rely in your native language, just the meaning.